Hello and welcome to another episode of the Digitals and Accrual podcast, brought to you by the Digital Disruptors. And this time around, we're sponsored by AdvanceTrack. So thank you to the great team there for sponsoring this episode. Of course, if you're interested in what AdvanceTrack are all about, they are the outsourcing and pod sourcing go-to people to help you build up your capacity in your practice and firm. We're also going to be diving into some really detailed stuff with FreeAgent and Content Snare, which Ryan and I have been recording over the last few weeks. So it's going to be really interesting to get into some of the detail of what they've been doing, and you'll catch that later on the podcast. But I guess, Ryan, we've not spoken for, I don't know, less than a few days. It's unbelievable. So how the devil are you doing?
Good, mate. So at some point we're going to run out of conversation, aren't we? Because we just talk too often. It's like when you see your friends down the pub and you're like, oh no, we've been going down the pub too long now. I need new friends, just for a different conversation.
You just sit there in silence and drink. Is that what you do?
Yeah, that's what you do. That's what happens, especially as you get older as men. But I think the new thing is that you were fortunate enough. I say fortunate enough, I think you paid money for, but to go to the Accounting Excellence Awards, and I was not there. So, John, fill me in. Like, was it anywhere near, even close to the quality of the Digital Disruptors Awards?
No, it was rubbish. It was amateur hour. It was disastrous. No, as I'm sure you can imagine, the Account Excellence Awards were very, very good. Really well put together as always by the team at Accounting Web and the whole group of people that kind of help out and make that work. And at the Roundhouse again, which I think is the third year in a row that it's been there. Great venue, really good for sort of getting people in there, and the setup and the scale is like completely different to what we do, which is great because it means we can set ourselves apart. And some really interesting winners of the awards last night. A slightly different way to presenting some of the awards because we had a sort of a bronze, silver, and gold that they called out, so top 3 in each category, and just nice to catch up with people in the community. You know, that's what we would like these events for, is like to see some of the people that you don't see very often, and even some of the people you do see quite often, just to actually catch up with them in a different venue. And lots of people said that I looked completely different in my black tie and everything else, and not my hoodie or my
t-shirt,
trousers or whatever, or t-shirt. Yeah, so there you go. And I did get a chance to catch up with Indy as well, who's unfortunately not here with us on this recording. But I caught up with her over lunch with Nick Levine and a whole bunch of other people. So yeah, it was nice to see her face to face as well, because like I say, it's only been a few days, but yeah, it's nice. That's nice.
We can go half a year without physically seeing each other in person, and then you can't get away from each other over September. No, I mean the event is crazy and the budget is huge, and it's that pinnacle of the year in reality for an awards event. And so we joke that it wouldn't live up to ours. We know we've got aspirations to be anything as grandeur as Accounting Excellence Awards, but as you say, it sets us apart. And I think the beautiful thing about the different awards events throughout the year is they all bring something different, right? It's a black tie event. Mm-hmm. You go there to strut your stuff, whereas ours is more of a light-hearted chin wag, I'd say.
Is that right? Yeah, it's for peacocking. Is that what you're saying? We should go there as a sort of like,
That's what I do. I bring my own tail.
I mean, talking of peacocking, we should tease him a little bit about this. Our very own digital, deity. He was on the dance floor from the very second that there was space to dance, and he's like the Energizer Bunny. He just didn't stop until we got kicked out at about 1 o'clock in the morning. So quite impressive.
You can't
even attempted the splits, and I think a backflip at one point as well. So it was
wow.
He was pulling out all the moves.
He's that award, the Deity Award, has gone to his head. Chris Downing, we commend you for your amazing dance moves.
He was outdone by 2 women, though, who did manage to do the proper splits on the dance floor, which was eye-opening and mind-boggling in so many different ways.
Fair enough. I will not ask follow-up questions to that.
Hello and welcome to Dave Norwell from FreeAgent. So we're excited to have you on, and excited in the sense that we know that an impending freight train is about to come through and knock the lights out of most SMEs and sole traders in the UK, especially small and mid-sized accounting practices that work with a lot of different types of landlords who will be affected by NTDIT, which already sounds like some sort of disease that is going to sweep across our nation.
And I guess, the reason for getting Dave on is that FreeAgent have obviously been working with HMRC through some of the betas more recently, and obviously then consulting with their customers and those accountancy practices clients as well, to kind of see where they're at and get a feel for the lay of the land. We know that some are super organized and we know that some are at the opposite end of the spectrum, but what are the kind of roadblocks? What are the practical things that we can talk about and overcome? Dave, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself and maybe provide us a bit of your background as well? It'd be great.
Cheers. Thanks, John. Thanks, Indy. My name is Dave Norwell. I'm the National Sales Manager at FreeAgent. So I look after the teams that look after medium, large and national firms across the UK.
Did you see the first wave of MTD in as well from I don't know how many years it was now, but what are the common patterns that you're seeing occurring from that wave previously to the one that's coming, given that we're 6 months out?
Yes, I was in the MTD VAT wave, and then I was in the MTD ITSA wave, and now I'm in the MTD IT wave. They're all similar in a sense. Generally, you have the phase of denial, more denial,
Grief.
denial, grief, maybe a bit of acceptance. That's the pattern, realistic, with all these things, as with any other kind of change. So it's exactly the same now. Exactly the same. Groundhog Day.
I guess one of the key differences here is that for a lot of businesses that were caught by MTD for VAT, they were already doing quarterly returns. They may or may not have been in software, but at least this was kind of the cadence was familiar to them. Whereas this is brand new, isn't it, for both sole traders, partnerships, and obviously for landlords. Probably that's going to be one of the biggest stumbling blocks, I guess, both for the clients of accounting practices, but also accounting practices to kind of figure out how do they accommodate this going forward and who's responsible for it.
100%. I mean, like you say, the VAT clients, there was a logic to that. It wasn't changing too much, if we're honest, even though it was still a project. What we're talking about here is a complete step change for these clients and for the way that the practices deal with them.
Who are the businesses that you know that right now are like affected by this, that are engaging with you, and which are the ones that should be engaging but are not engaging?
Client side, I always use my father-in-law as an example. I was saying to John yesterday, so my father-in-law's probably typical, like kind of self-made, investment properties, really hard worker, quite cynical in his outlook. And when I explained the project to him, I won't say what his reaction was, but most people would guess it contained expletives and everything else, because, the reality for someone like him, in his mind, he's been running a certain way for his whole life. He's near the end of that period. It feels like a massive imposition. So, in fact, it's a really hard thing. I empathise with the practice side because you're selling something very hard. That a person like that does not see the benefits. However much we want to spin it for them, they don't.
How do the practices then? What can they do then to get started on, how they can help themselves to get a little bit more engagement from their client base?
I think that the reality of this kind of project is that it's huge and it's messy. And whatever kind of practice, however you run it, however far ahead you are with tech, it's the same for everyone. For me, probably one of the key points when I ask questions when I'm with practice, kind of what's the first step? What do I do? I think the most important thing is to be sure of a plan that you go to clients with in a proactive, positive way. And that sounds very generic, but I don't see too many practices doing that. And the ones that do are the ones that are generally doing this well. Don't get me wrong. There'll be question marks in their minds about pricing, about final kind of tech selection at the end of the mandation 3-year period. But at least for this period, what they're tending to do to clients is kind of going to a message of, this is happening. We are going to work like this, and we want you to do this. Those kind of 3 key elements. And it's not creating huge kind of responses to success, but they're the practices that are starting to get clients onboarded, involved, communicating, because at the end of the day, a lot of these clients are still completely in the dark about it. For me, on the opposite end of that spectrum, where practices aren't kind of doing well, is where they have no plan and the communication to the client is, this may be happening, we'd quite like you to do something, because the reaction to that is always no reaction or no. And it seems quite broad brush, but for me, that's an important distinction between those two approaches. And it's software agnostic, it's approach agnostic. Is actually, as with all things, we're a professional advisory profession. If we're going to our clients and giving that proactive, strong advice, whatever it is, it's a vast difference from edging in the door, like calling through the window. You might want to do this. And I think for me, that's the distinction.
So I'm going to kick off App News this week with something from FYI. They have released what they call team productivity. Essentially, it's giving you more visibility of what's happening within your team on a day-to-day basis regarding their timesheets, their chargeability, and I guess, are they actually doing what they should do? So If you've followed the journey that FYI has been on, it started as document management, has moved into practice management with the release of its Elite platform, which is all about time and billing, visibility of the tasks and what you're doing on a job, and bringing that into the very powerful automation engine that is within FYI. But some of the weaknesses that I've experienced, because I use it at present for my business, is being able to see how are the other staff members doing. If you're looking at your own timesheets and your own productivity, it's really powerful. But how's your team doing, and how's that operating? And they've brought that in so you can slice data, not just time, but what chargeable cost associated with time and other metrics as well, to see exactly what's going on against any kind of range of individual or client or job, so that you're slicing the data in the way that you need to see it. So it covers actual hours, expected hours, as well as productivity percentages when you're slicing this data. But you've also got a couple of new views in your homepage. So if you are managing a team, you've got a missing timesheet view, you can go and look at it directly. But all of this functionality is, as you'd expect, closed off within a permission group. So only those that are managers or admins can essentially see what's going on for their team. It's a relatively, for practice management, minor change, but big shift in enhancing the product into, competing against others in the space as they grow out that functionality. And similarly, they've also released, and I think this was a while ago actually, but I picked it up in one of their news articles, is the ability to create an interim invoice. So within the system, you could already do a progress invoice, a final invoice, and a disbursement invoice. And the only one that was really missing is an interim invoice, which you do a lot of the time in accountancy practices, something that becoming more and more prevalent as you're trying to improve your cash flow. So bring in interim invoices. It works exactly as you expect it would. I've used it as well as gone through all the training and all of this. So there's probably nothing shiny and exciting to talk about that there, John. Just it does exactly as you'd expect it to.
It's the run seal of interim invoicing features. Is that what it is?
And sometimes you need a RON seal, right? Because it does exactly as it says on the tin and protects, your garden furniture. Unlike FYI, please do not try and use FYI to protect your garden furniture.
Amazing.
No. Broken you.
Oh, well. Right, let's move on to something a little less abstract. So Gather Nexus, which is an app. I think I'm right in saying they're based out of the US, so they're not a UK app, are they, Ryan?
Not that I'm aware of. It's a new one to me anyway.
Yeah. So I think they're based out of the US, but they are jumping in head-to-head with the guys at Mayday and Translucent, bringing in multi-entity functionality to QuickBooks Online. So that's launching very, very soon, and there's already a Xero integration. And what they're going to add into the platform that you'll be able to do is 4 main things. So you're going to be able to look at group financial reporting, so an element of sort of consolidation across multiple entities, which looks quite cool, and you can drill down into the transactions as well on a consolidated basis. So I guess you can kind of already do that with some of the reporting tools, and obviously we mentioned Mayday and others. They've also got the ability to do group financial planning, so actually being able to project out, and then you can drill down and do that at division level as well. So I'm not sure, because I haven't seen the detail of this, so I'm not sure what that means in terms of does division represent an organization, or does division represent almost like a cost center within an organization, and kind of how that drill down works. So that's something to explore and find out a bit more about. And then the last couple of things you could do is intercompany recharges, which includes being able to do transfer pricing, so you can add margins and markups, etc. And you can do reconciliations as well. So you've got the ability to sort of check that obviously all the balances add up and they correlate to each other and what you're expecting. So a cool bunch of features. I guess this seems to be like the frontier that we're seeing at the moment with like Mayday and Translucent now, and Gather and Nexus doing that as well. And I guess it'll be interesting to see what happens with this in the future in terms of, are we going to start to add more and more platforms so this becomes functional for international groups? Because obviously Michael Wood very much started Translucent off the genesis of his experience when he built Receipt Bank, which became Dext. Of moving into multi-company, multi-regional accounting systems. And I guess also is like, where does this go next with the whole AI thing? Because Gather do reference AI in the sort of the press release, although they don't really deep dive into kind of what that AI does. So something else to find out, I guess, at some point.
You have to mention AI in a press release nowadays, don't you? Yeah, it can have no AI in it at all. You just have to put those letters somewhere. So someone, like, I don't know, some algorithm just goes
#AI.
Yeah, exactly. But the whole intercompany thing is becoming more and more critical, I think, and hence why you're seeing more programs in this space, because we're seeing a lot more organizations move into the realms of Xero and QuickBooks, and they are becoming dimensional, multi-entity, multi-country. And the other thing about the likes of Mayday is it slices within an entity, right? So when you've got divisions, you can kind of work in the same way. And I'm finding that the only thing that is, I guess, butting heads on this and this progress is the likes of that fair usage rule policy that Xero and QuickBooks have kind of brought out. The basis says if you are a bigger organization trying to use our tool and we feel that you're abusing it, we're going to ask you politely to go somewhere else. And I've not come across any that have been asked, but I know there's the threat there in the background. And that's the only thing that's going to butt heads here. I've always asked for Xero to release a bigger platform. QuickBooks already does that. You can grow all the way up into enterprise. And I think that's where the benefit of Gather Nexus integrated into QuickBooks means there's more longevity for their program as the business evolves and grows out over time, rather than just being small operational entities.
And it's a strange one that I guess Xero have that in place. I mean, I guess I could probably understand it from maybe just like an operational point of view, because they don't want to have big organizations on there then getting frustrated and moaning about the fact that they can't run reports and do things which we're aware of. But equally at the same time, like you say, I mean, why push away customers that are going to be at the top end of your market and going to pay quite handsomely for a platform?
Yeah, but it's the same fee, right? So if you're Xero and that you're paying, you've got a small business that's using a tiny bit of your server resource compared to a big business that's burning through it. Why would you want the big business on there? That's why I've always said the power of Xero lends itself to having an enterprise level. Just release something, charge a lot more money for it, and you will retain clients and they will pay it because they love the ecosystem if you retain that. And it still baffles me that the strategy is to stay away from that when there's a huge space they can go into, especially as QuickBooks have tapped into it. But they keep coming back to it. They're aimed at small businesses. They're focusing on that and they don't want to move away from that. So you've got to kind of tip your hat to staying with the strategy.
Yeah, we'll just have to see, I guess. But anyway, let's move on to something slightly different. So the amazing team at Adsum have released agent mode, and they were showing this off actually at Accountex North the other week. And I did get a chance to very briefly to catch up with Max, and he showed this off with one of his team. And it's pretty cool. It's very impressive in terms of, obviously does a little bit of what you kind of expect, which is, you're able to use agent mode to interrogate the data that Adsum are collating and collecting in a way that allows you to either pull records and data through that chat interface, also allows you to ask questions. You can then do a whole bunch of tasks off the back of that, which include things like automatic reminders for clients, payment reminders, deadline reminders, whatever you've got in there. On the demo that they showed me, it worked really neatly. It was very, very impressive. It's really interesting to see the thought process that it goes through and things as part of that. And I think that's quite useful as the user to be able to see that. And I guess the only thing that we have a little bit of a challenge with any of these kind of agents or sort of automated sort of chat systems is like, how do we make sure that what they're delivering is something really functional, really valuable, not just something that could be buried in a report that you could just press a button to generate. So that's probably the thing there. But I think what the Adsum team have done has been very focused. It does a handful of things very, very well, and hopefully it doesn't start to become I don't know, Jax, let's say, from Xero, I've become a little bit woolly.
Yeah, well, we're seeing a lot more of these kind of AI interactive tools that sit inside the platform now. And as you say, if it's generating new things that are really hard to uncover, it's great. It's really powerful. But if it's just a little gimmick and it's not doing that, then actually it detracts from the power of the system. So, I guess we're going to see over time.
So I should say very quickly that it's available there for beta. So if you want to get into it, if you're using the product already, it's there available. And actually one of the things that they have got is they've got a couple of pre-built prompts, so it's not actually that you have to write a prompt to say,
cool,
find me all the clients that have got a payment due next month or next week or whatever it might be. So that also helps in kind of like that level of automation.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that actually as prompting is one of the hardest things to get used to with AI, that's really helpful. I've got something from Active Workpapers. They have integrated or partnered with AlphataX. Now, this is, I think, a really interesting move from Active because they've been building out their accounts production tool. So known for their integrated work papers where they can suck in data from the live client system, so the client ledger, so be that Xero, QuickBooks Online, etc., and pull that directly into a tailored working papers built around Excel. So you can essentially, as an accounting firm, retain the thing you love the most, which is your Excel working papers, but now superpower it by integrating it not only into your client's ledgers, but into an accounts production tool that Active own. But the weakness, I guess, the missing link was the ability to do corporation tax on the back of this. And now you can do that by a direct integration into AlphaTax. Now, the way that will work essentially is it will pull the trial balance directly out of the Active suite. So the way Active works is although you've got work papers and you've got accounts production, all the data sits in kind of their own ledger. That will be connected directly into the AlphaTax platform. So you can pull that back, pull that into the system. But then once, I guess, you're doing the adjustments, when you've got your tax figure, you can pull that back into the Active platform. So you now got your tax calculation or tax liability in there, which, because of the way Active works, you can push them back into the client's ledger. So you've got a complete flow now. And I think this is really good in the way that tax is one of the hardest areas to fill. We've seen this in cloud native systems that it's taken ages to get anything that can do tax in any quality, like years to get to it. But you've got these incredibly powerful traditional systems that deliver on it and people rely on. And because tax is all about being 100% accurate, then partnering and integrating into a platform will build trust. And if they want to build something their own, I guess, longer term, they can do that alongside it. So quicker solution for all the clients that are using Active. I think, pretty great approach, to be honest, and something that now starts to form an ecosystem around the Active platform so that you're got that as your kind of core compliance base, and then you're kind of partnering with and working towards integrations into things like practice management, which it can do with FYI. So I think that Active's now, although it's taken a little while, really setting the scene in the UK market for work papers.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, obviously tax systems is AlphaTax, the old AlphaTax team, a very well revered, credible, really good product on the market. And I guess for them in particular, this is a good opportunity because they didn't have any other integrations, direct integrations really. And this sort of brings them back into the practice fold and keeps them relevant. And I think from an Active point of view, this kind of puts them right up against Silverfin, right? They've got that kind of work papers into accounts production, into corporation tax. Not quite in the same way that Silverfin done it because they've got it all in one, but it's essentially the equivalent of what they're trying to do. Tax working papers are also something that people are often interested in and seeing, and that's something that, for example, Carbon has in the US but doesn't have here in the UK. So that's obviously another area of development for people.
Now, I should stop calling it AlphaTax. I'm so used to calling it by the traditional name, right? Call it the modern name, tax systems, right? And tax systems.
Well, tax systems sounds super cool because they're now in the cloud rather than desktop, right?
Yeah, that's it. They need a new name for it.
Right, let's move on to something from Roveel, another awesome app that we haven't talked about for a wee while, but Roveel is like the sort of like data aggregation reporting tool, historically well known for their Sage integrations, particularly their desktop products, and being able to turn what is a fairly clunky experience into something really quite seamless and enjoyable. Also have Xero integrations and other things, but they've now announced a strategic partnership with Tradebox. Tradebox is an automated e-commerce accounting and order management platform, not one that I'm overly familiar with, just simply because I tend to use other tools. But they've now got this ability to kind of pull down more and more data and more information for people that are trading online. And for a lot of organizations, being able to report on things like margin, have a better idea of like what products are selling, what products are not selling, for example, that's that's really, really important for these kind of businesses. And so what you're going to get here with this partnership is, like I say, this ability to do detailed reporting. You've also got more integration, and as a consequence, because Tradebox is going to use Reveal's reporting engine to pull data, including sales, VAT, etc., into one central place. Like I say, off the back of that, you can then make better decisions as an e-commerce business. And they're promising to share support and training. So if you're a Reveal customer wanting to look at Tradebox or vice versa, you'll be able to get some joint training on that to make sure that you maximize the opportunity and stuff. So sounds pretty cool, pretty neat. Like I say, I'm not that familiar with Tradebox, but I guess there'll be plenty of people out there who are and will want to explore this.
Yeah, interesting. I've got something from Xero, and this one seems to have gone under the radar for me. So probably because we have, and I more than anyone, have moaned about Xero not doing anything for such a long time. And then they change their entire UI and make it look completely different. They're rebuilding the dashboard. They're building SIFT directly into it. And I've had new reports coming through into my platform recently. You can now do SIFT as a practice and benchmark across your clients, which is in beta. I'm not even sure there's a formal announcement about that, but I've seen it. So that one's looking interesting. But they've also released something they call game changing. Not sure it is, but it's interesting, which is a beneficial ownership compliance tool. Now, what the heck is a beneficial ownership compliance tool? Well, it's all about building out, and I'm probably going to say this wrong, but an organogram. So never heard this term before, but essentially, how does that organization look and feel, and how's the ownership structure? So have you got groups, have you got individuals, how does that kind of flow of ownership look? So you've probably, if you've worked in, especially in audit, but in an accounting practice, you've already drawn these to some extent in Excel or on a piece of paper with a pencil, because they need to sit in the audit file to verify kind of how the business is owned. You can now do this essentially through Xero. Now, this is integrated into their practice management and tax solution via something called the Gatekeeper app. Not something I've actually heard of being called that before, and I've not found this yet. So what I don't know, because this is on a South African part of Xero, whether this is just in the South Africa area. It's on the global region website, but it doesn't reference a area that it's in. So I'm not certain if this is across every part of Xero yet, or just being trialed and released in a certain area. But the ability to build out this, once again, coming into groups and the, I guess, prevalence of this, groups using the likes of Xero. I think this is a very nice little neat tool that will sit inside, I guess, Xero HQ or within Practice Manager, or I guess across both, that you can model how your client, I guess, ownership structure looks, and probably becomes more prevalent as we go into the realms of making tax digital and ledgers that are going to be part owned by individuals, especially if you're going to have properties or trades such as partnerships, which have multiple owners. So I think this is quite good. Hopefully this will lead into the way that like profit splits work inside the system over time, but no hint of that. That's just me speculating. And I've seen individual tools that try and sell this, but now you can do it directly inside Xero, I think, in the UK. I'm not entirely sure where at the moment, but you can definitely do it somewhere in Xero.
Somewhere in the UK. You could do it in Cornwall.
Maybe. Or the Isle of Wight.
Yeah, I wonder if this is like maybe also Xero maybe stepping into more compliance territory, because needing to know and understand the beneficial ownership and the structure of an organization that you're working with is part of AML procedures here in the UK and in some other countries as well, but predominantly the UK. And so I do wonder if that's a thing. Or maybe, for example, I know that in Australia, like the account kit, which has been built out by an accounting firm out there, which plugs into Xero, they have a similar kind of thing as well, because it's quite common in Australia to have a business which has got a trust connected to it, and then a slightly complicated ownership structure linked to that, because that's quite a common setup.
So whilst we've been on this, breaking news, it's referenced just in South Africa. They've got a webinar that's specifically for South Africa that is coming out on the 18th of November. So I'm guessing that this is something that's being trialed in that area. I can't see any reason that this wouldn't be rolled out across other jurisdictions, because it's going to apply everywhere. But I guess as they are doing with inventory in the US, and I think they started with the new UI look over in Australia, that this is something that is going to spread across the Xero platform once it's been tested and tweaked and made better.
The only equivalent thing that I'm really aware of here in the UK, I guess, would be something that the guys at Samar have built, where you can kind of build out a little bit of an organization structure for you when it comes to what's going on in there. But again, it's built for compliance. So I guess what we kind of really need to understand is like, what is Xero trying to do with this tool? Is it going to be a compliance tool? Is it going to be like a management tool in terms of, like you say, being able to manage profit shares or charging and stuff? Who knows? But yeah, interesting.
Definitely.
Nevertheless.
If there's anything I'm taking from this, it's the word organogram.
Every day's a school day, Ryan, right?
It is.
So I'm gonna dip into something, I guess kind of connected to Xero, which is the guys at Insightful Accountant have done a bit of a deep dive into Digits. So we've talked about Digits before on the podcast. Digits started life out in the US as basically a chatbot that you could connect it into the likes of Xero and QuickBooks, and you could ask it to sort of help summarize, I don't know, your P&L for the last 3 months, or you could help it to sort of drill down into marketing spend or something, and you'd get a really good response. So it was a really nice interface. You get some, it wasn't just returned in words. You got graphical replies as well. So you got something that was a little bit more consumable, and I guess probably not too far away from maybe what you experienced with Fathom from a reporting side of things. So quite like that. And then since then, what Digits have done, probably in about the last, I guess, maybe 12 to 18 months, I can't remember the timing, is they kind of pivoted away from just being that chat, essentially, and created what they called the AGL, which was the AI-powered general ledger. And so this is kind of like their big thing that now that they're raising money on and that they're selling to people, is like they're the first AI-powered general ledger tool in the marketplace to compete with the likes of Xero and Intuit and et cetera, et cetera. And so we've got this deep dive into the product. And effectively, what's in there is... like I say, we've got this autonomous general ledger. We've got something that is built specifically so that AI and agents can be baked in rather than added onto, and allow you to automate tasks. Now, that sounds all very well, very exciting and everything else, but I guess the reality is it possible to actually automate a lot of things, and does this make a real difference? And we've talked about this as well on the pod before, where if you're doing bookkeeping with, say, Xero and Dext, and maybe Approval Max, that is actually quite a seamless process, particularly if you've got a fairly standard business. Where it becomes more complicated is where things get a little bit wiry in terms of strange VAT or a lack of consistency in terms of the suppliers that you're using, where maybe they hop around between nominal ledgers and stuff. But essentially, Digits claim that they can get 97% of transactions auto-categorised with transparency and confidence levels set at a really high bar, and you can see that as a user. They haven't built this in a traditional kind of database relationship kind of way, in terms of having a model that's kind of in traditional sort of SQL databases or whatever. Because it's been built for AI first, they're using a whole different set of technology, which is things like vectors and semantic models in the background. What that really means, essentially, is that a database I guess, for an accountant's point of view, is a little bit like using Excel. It's very structured. You've got fields for lots of different things, and those fields then have to be mapped to other places to make them work. Whereas when you're object-oriented, you basically create one place for one thing, but then that can be linked to multiple places. And that's what the vector graph then enables you to do. They also say that they can help you to generate invoices super quick using AI, and then you can manage payment tracking, reminders, et cetera, and it integrates with things like Stripe so that you can have those payments collected, automatically reconciled, and automatically follow up as well if things don't get paid. And then the real detail in terms of like what's happening is not too surprising. This isn't very revolutionary, but they've got an inbox for transactions or decisions where confidence from the model is quite low, so that it gets flagged for a human to intervene and have a check, see what's going on with that. You've also got the ability to import or create custom setups for things like your chart of accounts, but also like categories and subcategories and stuff. So you get the ability to kind of like drill down in quite a complex way into the data. And then last but not least, last few things that they've got is they're trying to promote bank feeds using Plaid, although of course we know that bank feeds are a major issue, and that's why QuickBooks and Xero have changed the way they do bank reconciliation over there. You can also upload CSVs, and those will be automatically populated, automatically reconciled, and then it will flag anomalies again as a consequence. And then you can do invoice scanning via OCR, so they're not trying to use a large language model to extract, which is probably a good thing because it's more accurate. And again, those are automatically processed. There are some transaction charges for those processes, so that's an interesting way for them to monetize the model. And then the additional stuff that's in there is all very traditional stuff. To be fair, you've got the ability to have a dashboard where you can see data coming in, cash flow, burn rates, P&L, et cetera, and an area to store documents. And that's very familiar as well, because we've had Xero build that. We've got QuickBooks still built that. Dex have just built that fairly recently and stuff. And so that's where it is. What's missing? Very quickly, no payroll, no inventory, no stock management. There's no sales tax or any kind of like tax compliance in there. You have to link it into things like Avalara and stuff like that to make that work. It is very much a US specific product still. They have said that they will come to the UK, but we don't know when. There's a bit of a challenge with migration as well, because they're mainly focusing on QuickBooks clients and moving them from QuickBooks into Digit. And there have been in testing some challenges around the data move. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, look, this is potentially the future of accounting, in terms of like where general ledger technology is going to be. We know that Xero in particular spent a lot of time rebuilding their infrastructure. Intuit spent a ton of money on theirs as well. But interesting times.
Yeah. So what I think is going to happen next, John, is that we're going to see more and more of these kind of products like Digits. We've got Artifact AI that's been released in the UK not that long ago, and that, from what you've described, is essentially what they're doing as well. You've got the likes of Sage, QuickBooks, and Xero that are all trying to do a similar thing. And where we had that race to cloud not that long ago, we're now essentially getting a race to AI-powered accountancy. And I guess the last thing I was going to bring up is conversation has now gone away from AI into everything is AI agents. So the little bots can go and do all these tasks for you. And we're now seeing that in practice management as well. And there's been an article from Acting Office, which is that practice management and compliance all in one tool that's aimed at the bigger accountancy firms, where they have put AI agents throughout their platform. And essentially what they're doing is they are looking at advisory. So you've got advisory agents in there that's sifting through client data to flag potential tax savings, and also personalized communications based on your normal interaction with that client. You've got everything you said from a bookkeeping point of view, so transactions being categorized and reconciliations automatically happening in the background, with anything that is a low confidence level being flagged, or anything that looks anomalous being flagged. And then you've got compliance, so automated reminders and tags and analysis for VAT, corporation tax, and anything that's making tax digital specific. And then from a workflow automation perspective, so onboarding, like through to payroll and tasks that are all linked inside one platform. Now, the beauty of having that all in one platform is the AI agent can go over everything in the data. And that's the bit that we're going to, I guess, struggle to see when you've got these siloed tools, is how are you going to interact or share information. And I know you've got, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it an MCP, John, which is that kind of API or AI-powered API. And I think we're going to have to see a lot more of these AI agents interacting through the MCP to make sure they're sharing data with other authorized AI agents in your approved tools. So now we've got a system, an agent in that system that are connected not only by APIs for sharing data, but connected via MCPs for sharing or interactive AI agents. And that, I think, is what we're going to really start to see in 2026. And I find it fascinating the speed that this is happening. I think by the end of 2026, it's going to be hugely disruptive.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the probably the biggest challenge at the moment is just making sure that these things are reliable, right? And that's no different from an employee. You want a reliable employee doing the same kind of work. But that's what we're trying to get over at the moment, isn't it? In terms of like, how accurate are these things? If they do make a mistake, how easy is it to pick up and to correct it or to identify it? But I think you're absolutely right, Ryan, on that kind of like the agents thing, not just being in one place, but being in multiple places. And actually the challenge then is like, how do you orchestrate that? How do you manage multiple agents maybe sitting across multiple places, or maybe one agent sitting above an MCP server with lots of different connections into it? I mean, I don't have an answer for that at the moment, other than like still experimenting with these kind of things to figure out what the potential possibilities are. And I think that's the other challenge, is like the possibilities are endless. I mean, I've seen, a tool that's being built by someone at the moment, which sits above the data that HMRC hold, the data that's at Companies House, and the data that you could have in Xero to help you prepare accounts, like financial statements, proper accounts, all iXBRL tagged with everything in the background, and also give you context around taxation, give you information and advisory, results on what it's seeing, not only just in real time, but also at that point in preparation where you're kind of doing that year-end task. And yeah, the speed of this is just absolutely staggering. And when people sort of say, "Oh, don't worry," like advisory still needs people to deliver it. No, it doesn't. Like that is fundamentally the thing. We already know. I mean, I read somewhere else. I can't remember what it was in. And we'll probably talk about this in a future podcast because I need to find the snippet, but I literally read it today where it was saying something like, I think it was something crazy, like 83% of clients are using AI like ChatGPT to come up with answers in the same way that they were going to use Google previously to kind of like preempt the questions that they give to accountants. And obviously that's changing the way that we then work with our clients, because sometimes we're having to debunk the nonsense that they're getting from a large language model if it's incorrect. But equally at the same time, I think the other interesting aspect of the research was that we were being more challenged more directly about the advice that we were giving to make sure that it kind of tied in with the information that they'd got from a chatbot, from a large language model. So I think that's the world we're going to be living in. So I mean, hopefully, in theory, that means that standards should go up. But it also does mean that if we think that this kind of this ethos of people by people, and that you're not going to you're not going to be affected by AI. I fundamentally believe that there's a whole tranche of entrepreneurs, probably younger entrepreneurs, but equally older ones as well, who are quite comfortable interacting with a chatbot and getting results. And I think firms maybe don't realize, and I think we're in the same boat, and I think we're quite a long way along the journey. I don't think they realize how quickly and how much they need to react to this in a really, really sort of swift way.
Yeah, I dispute that anyone likes interacting with a chatbot. I think we kind of are forced to interact with chatbots, but a lot of us, including myself, like not having to deal with people if I can get an answer straight at my fingertips. And that's more convenience more than anything else, right? I don't want to have to wait for someone to be available if I want an answer right now. And we do this for so many other things in our life, that why wouldn't we do it for accounting? So yeah, it makes sense. It will go that way, and we'll have to change how we operate. And I think that's a beautiful, saddening note to end the app news for this week on.
Well, I think let's make it upbeat then. Like we know that entrepreneurs, like accountants, are short on time, and actually, when we're thinking about convenience, what they do want is they want convenience when it works for them. If they're busy running their business 9 till 5, which I know is a very traditional sort of view nowadays, but if they're busy doing that 9 till 5 and the accountant's working 9 till 5, what they want is they want to be able to speak to someone at 8 o'clock and go, "Hey, can you help me figure this out?" So maybe that's a future of work for accountants and for our clients, is to actually be able to figure out a way where we can interact. Maybe not 24/7 because that's unmanageable, but in a way that makes us more accessible at more appropriate times without impacting on our personal and professional lives in a way that's so disruptive. So maybe that's what we should be looking for.
And actually, I think that's an incredibly powerful thing to land on, John, because so many firms are trying to pull everyone back into working in the office. Where actually the ones that are doing things really successful are the ones that are actually going the other way. Not only can you work from home, but you can work at times that suit you. Maybe start at 7 a.m., take some time out for either childcare or because you've got stuff to do in the middle of the day. And if you need to work late at night, and that actually helps, that works fundamentally in with what you're saying, the demands of a future client may be. I think being open-minded and approaching this in a different way, not thinking what did we do in the past, but what is the future needs of our clients, I think would actually be a better way of defining how you handle management of staff in your team.
Absolutely. And one final point on that, because again, I've read that today, was Adam Grant posted on LinkedIn. And if you don't know who he is, he's like a psychologist that looks at work and how that affects people. He is the man to go to, like when it comes to like anything work-based research. And they did a study of over 3 million employees. I don't know where the study was, but I'm going to assume it's probably in the US. And it looked at the impact on tech and finance people as businesses have kind of come out of COVID and like had this shift back into the return to the office and return to the work environment. And what they found was that the organizations that enforced these policies and made them very, very strict, they lost talent. They typically lost the more senior, like high quality talent as well. And also the bigger impact was on women. So more women came out of the workforce and away from those organizations and went to work other places, which should have more flexible working policies. So I think That's the other thing to bear in mind. And we know from speaking to people like Joe and Zoe, for example, that bookkeepers in particular, who are predominantly women, typically become bookkeepers and do that because it fits around the lifestyle that they want to be able to manage. So I think it's really important that we kind of we think about this.
Can't agree more.
Well, there you go. Perfect. Well, there's two men setting the world to rights about women's rights.
Yeah, I think we've got it sorted. We have mansplained how women want to work. We're back again, James Rose from Content Snare. And something that comes up frequently on this podcast is that the UK is always a little bit behind our Aussie neighbours. And given that you are over in the other side of the world, James, and you're probably in this panacea of tech perfection over there, I thought it'd be good to get a little bit of a base of where are we, like, because you see a little bit of the UK market. Where are we compared to Australian businesses and Australian accounting firms?
Oh, this is a loaded question. I feel like I'm just going to get in trouble if I know. But so, I got thrown, the most experience I've had was at Digital Accountancy Show earlier this year. And I feel like that's probably not indicative of the whole market, not representative, of the whole market. Being there feels like Australia in a way. There's a lot of sort of really tech forward firms here. However, it seems to be a bit more fractured. Like there's a lot more tax software type things, like, Sage, not really a thing here, right? So there's more fragmentation in the market. But then you go and look at like the US, and the UK just looks like light years ahead. So
yes,
like it's not like UK's really behind in the world. It's just maybe Australia's kind of pretty heavy on tech, and I think that's kind of been fostered by Xero. The Xero ecosystem.
I think so. I think because of, like cloud and the way we work with our clients has been kind of changed and evolved by the presence of like cloud native systems, and Xero coming from New Zealand, going to Australia, and then coming to the UK, and then going to the US. Although you've got QuickBooks Online that kind of did cloud at the same time, the way it did it and the way it had its impact of working with the accounting profession is very different to the way Xero's done it. And I feel that kind of flow, I guess, from east to west, has had that impact on how far we are front and behind. And I think actually a really good summary of this, and you touched on this in the last conversation we had, is about how the government works. And we tried doing Making Tax Digital. We still haven't really got it there. The Australian market has like a digital form you can download as accounts that kind of says everything that's on there. And you flag things such as like cryptocurrency and a set of shares. Whereas in the UK, our tax system is so old and fragmented itself, is that we can get some information on what your pay was, but God knows, like if you've sold these shares, or if you can, unless it's kind of listed, or if you've got like cryptocurrency, like I don't think the government's even aware of that. So there's limitations because of where we are. And I think you're entirely right. I think in the UK, we've got some incredibly forward-thinking firms. But if you look at that traditional like bell curve of early adopters to laggards, ours is wider and flatter, right? We're kind of, there's a bigger spread than over in Australia, where people are kind of more into the tech, and so it's been compressed down now because they've kind of caught up. But are you seeing, I guess, is there anything over in Australia where they're doing something more pioneering, or they've adopted an area where the UK is still, they're catching up?
Yeah, look, I guess I'm not exposed to a ton of it. Like I see like a lot of the tech that I, partner with or hang out with, all the people I know, they're all going to the UK as well. Well, they might have just started here, but everyone seems to want to go to the UK next, which is,
we're lovely.
I feel like, yeah, it's much, I guess, similar. That like selling in the US, I think, is very different. Whereas the UK, you guys are a little bit kind of like, what's the word here? Like, smell BS, like, in the US, you're like, oh, my thing it's the best, and does this and that, and they're like, wow, really? Whereas, if someone sells
we're
like
skeptical.
That, we're like,
that doesn't sound right. That sounds too good to be true. Yeah, we go in as Brits and go, look, we're going to start not trusting anyone, and then eventually you'll convince us that maybe we can take a look, which probably actually means the adoption curve in the UK, which probably leads into this, is quite slow. So we will see something And we'll be like, oh, that looks interesting. And then we'll have to kind of see it 3 or 4 times and go, okay, now I know some other people that are using it. Well, maybe I'll have a look at it.
Australia is very similar, I will say. It's accountants
okay.
specifically, yeah.
Okay, well, at least then, because sometimes I look at Australia and I think, oh, they've just adopted everything. It all connects and works and it's all fluid. But if you're saying there's still challenges and problems to overcome in Australia, then maybe we're catching up. Like we're getting there. As a profession, we're on the cusp. And I think actually there's a couple of things in the UK that are going to make big differences. One, MTD for income tax going to force a huge amount of businesses to use technology. And all of those accounting firms that managed to avoid it because maybe their client base hasn't really been on there are going to have to do something. And the firms themselves now, because they have to change the way they work, they are forcing them to adopt new technology as well. And that seems to just be happening. If you're not doing it as an accounting firm, you really need to be exploring that. But the other thing is e-invoicing. And I would assume over time, the mandation of connecting digital systems together, and then you're kind of creating this huge one network of how data is being shared. My understanding that in over Australia, yes, e-invoicing is a thing that is coming or has come, but they're also looking at connecting into other areas, such as like linking pension information in. Like, so we've got open banking. You're doing like open finance over there. Is that correct? I don't know if this is stuff that you're even aware of, James, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not my area. It is like there's obviously systems for communicating already. Like we were talking about before, the ATO, the Australian Tax Office, knows a lot of information. It's all getting piped in from banks and any on-ramps to crypto. Like that's how they know you traded crypto is they, if you use a gateway to buy crypto, they have to report back that, money came in or out. So like all of that is being piped around already. And it's funny you say that like, the ATO seems ahead on that because, you will get nothing but complaints about the ATO from accountants in Australia.
Oh, that's standard.
Right? Yeah. But it's like, good luck trying to deal with them, but it's funny to sort of step back and go like, we'll compare that to other countries.
Well, look, I might be doing the UK a disservice, to be fair, because once again, I've been talking to Chris Downing from Sage recently, and he says actually that he feels that HMRC, our kind of government, similar to your ATO, has kind of turned a corner in how they're looking and interacting and building out new technology. And it could be that we can actually report on crypto because I don't do personal tax. I don't see this directly. So it could be that we can actually get that information now. But yeah, it feels from what you're saying then that the market, the tech market and accountants in the UK in general should feel pretty bullish about what we're doing and that we are pretty ahead, maybe globally, not necessarily ahead of the Australia, but maybe getting towards being on par. Do you feel that's a reasonable assessment?
Yeah. There was way less difference than I expected, based on things I'd heard. I've heard a lot of people say the UK is like behind Australia, and I don't know, like that. I'm talking to firms that are probably forward thinking, right? They're using a product like Content Snare, especially in the UK, right? Because like I was saying before, you said it was like, multiple touch points before they go, okay, I've heard like 5 accountants say this product now, maybe I'll check it out. We're getting to that point now where there's actually pretty serious momentum and we're always mentioned and whatever, but that's taken quite a while to get to that point. So, but my experience in the UK is probably on that early cusp where there are the people that are looking for new tech. So that's what I've been exposed to. Maybe I'm getting the top tail. I don't know. But you obviously have a lot more people and a lot more firms. So that's why it's wide.
I think timing is everything. And I think that there's positives and negatives of where we are in the UK at the moment. One big positive is I think that accountants get it. They need to do something with their own systems. And so there's more interest in going and finding those answers out there. The negative is that we are getting busier and busier with less and less resources. So finding the time to make those changes, we're constantly fighting against doing the compliance, investing in the business. And that means that really sometimes we want to go faster than we actually physically can. But overall, I think, you've summarized it pretty well. And like you say, right, if a firm is using Content Snare, they're probably more advanced. So if you want to advance your practice, then it's probably worth reaching out, like especially from a document exchange perspective, if you haven't got a solution, reaching out to James and Tom at the team. And what would be the best way, James, to do that?
ContentSnare.com is, there's a button at the top there to book in a demo. That'll most likely be with Tom, who is a Brit, like everyone will be speaking to one of your own, I guess. Yeah, that's the best way. You can sign up for a free trial there as well. There's no credit card required. We try to be pretty fair like that. That's what I expect in software. I'm not a sales guy, so I feel like I've probably built things suboptimally from a sales perspective, but it is what it is.
Well, look, the one thing I would advise, if anyone's listening to this and you're not connected with James on LinkedIn, I would advise connecting because I find your posts very insightful, and if not, entertaining. So it's at least like with all the stuff and the stuff that's thrown at LinkedIn at the moment, it does mean that you're getting something that makes you smile if you're reading through this.
Thank you. I would love for people to connect with me there. That's great. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks again, James, for coming on. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Cheers, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
So there you go. That's another episode of the Digital to Cruel World podcast, all done and dusted for you. Hope you enjoyed the deep dive into Content Snare and FreeAgent as well. And of course, if you want to catch up with more news, insights, and everything else, we do the live stream on a Thursday in the week where we deep dive into one of the news topics just to sort of explore that in a little bit more detail and get into the weeds of that. And of course, we've got a newsletter, and you can sign up for that on the website, which we send out on a weekly basis as well, just to keep you up to date in case you don't catch the podcast, or actually if you just prefer to read something on a Friday, that's the way to do it. And of course, we can bring you news a little bit quicker with the newsletter because it goes out as soon as we capture it. So, there's lots of places you can interact with us. Of course, you can find us and follow us on all the usual channels as well: LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, blah, 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 all of those things. Come and find us, come and play with us, interact with us, tell us what we're doing well, tell us what we're doing badly, and we'll listen to some of it or all of it. Who knows?
Come and play with us.